Right, what's this video about? Well, it's back to this again. So it's the Astrolux s43s, and this is the one with the copper head, not brass, which I mistakenly kept calling it, but I do apologize for that. So it is copper. So why am I making this video? Excuse me. Right. Well, I had a few comments on the video for this flashlight from, I think it's called Gunter Fortman, and I do apologise if I've mispronounced your name because I presume you're from Germany. And interestingly enough, Germany is about in the top 3 of hits I get on my site. So the most people I get is American, followed by the UK visitors, and then German. So hello to all the Germans there. So his basic question was, I presume he's got one of these, but his basic question was, where the hell are the strobes? Now I can understand that, because even though this uses Narsil, with Narsil is just the place name for the UI, and UI just means user interface, so it's how you interact with the light to get it to do what you want, because there's no screen, it's not like a computer or a phone. So anyway, so this by default should be set to ramping. So for ramping, you just hold to go up, and then you get a little flicker, that's top, and you hold to go down. Couldn't be simpler, eh? And then if you double click, it goes straight to turbo, and then you have 3 clicks, and then obviously I think 4 clicks is lockout or something like that. But anyway, so his question was, where are the strobes? Good point. On most, especially tactical lights, it's normally a double click, or there's some way to quickly get to strobes. Now, unfortunately, by default on this Narsil on here, they're disabled. So in order to get them, you have to go into config mode. So what I'm going to do is, now the manual's quite big, so in order to help Gunter and other people, I'm going to try and make it simple. And whilst I show you how to get the strobes, I want to try and give you a little bit more understanding of the UI. So I'm going to hold this over here, because over here I'm going to put the manual, and I'm going to focus in on certain points. So you're probably thinking, well, where's turbo? Is it 100 clicks or what? Well, okay, this is what you need to do. To get into the config settings, what you need to do is you need to hold for 16 seconds. So you press the button, and regardless of what that's doing there, ignore that. So 16 seconds, or up to 16 seconds. Right, see these flashes, right? That means it's in config mode. So if you watch, right, let's see what's happening here. So it's flashing, you get 2 flashes, and then 1 flash, then the quick flashes, and then 1, 2, and then quick flashes, and then 3 flashes, and then you should get the quick succession followed by 4 flashes. So you're probably thinking, well, what on earth does all of that mean? And then if we leave it, it should go back to normal. Right, so that's back to normal. So, looking at the manual, what's happening is the UI is trying to give you a visual representation of the modes and menus that it's in. So under advanced settings, now bear in mind when I'm explaining this, these are the settings under ramping mode, which is default. So your torch or flashlight should be in ramping mode. So if you're in ramping mode, what I'm saying now is correct. If you're in user setting mode, this won't be correct. It'll be slightly different. There'll be more options. So I'm just making that proviso there. So if you're in the default ramping mode and you want to get the strobes, so if you look at the manual, under advanced settings, you have, I think there's 4 sections. I'm doing this off the top of my head, so if I make any mistakes, I apologise, but I'm just doing this video on the fly between a cup of coffee and going out. So in those 4 sections, off the top of my head, I think you've got user interface, moon level, and then there's probably some step down or heat, and then you have the strobes. So in order to get through these different settings, you can, once you're in config mode after the 16-second press, you can long press to skip and stuff, but I think it's safer to just let it go through the menus. So if we were to let it go to setting 1, then you need to click to get a specific setting. So under user interface, you can either have mode setting, which isn't the default, or ramping. Now I would suggest that you stick with ramping because then you can ramp it up and ramp it down rather than having a million different modes. And then under section 2 is there are moon levels. Now moon mode is when it goes really low, and I think you have about, there's a 1 to 7 there. 3 is the default, which is about right, I would suggest, but you can change that if you so wish. And then section 3 should be to do a step down. Now step down is when, let's say I was to run this on turbo, so I'll go to turbo there. There comes a point when the heat gets too much and it will step down. Okay, so I'll turn that down so that doesn't happen. Now, for whatever reason, you may want to turn that off. So within the step down menu, section 1, I think you can turn it off. 2 is the default, which should be temperature. So once it hits a temperature threshold, it lowers the output. That's the safest one. And then you have a timed one, section 3. I would suggest you keep that default. So strobes. So there's 3 settings on there. You've either got disabled, which is default. And then the second option is standard strobe. I think it's about 16 hertz off the top of my head. A standard flickering strobe, so on off, on off, on off. And then section 3 in that will be to get all strobes. I would suggest you probably stick with normal strobe, otherwise you're mucking about, you're trying to get strobe and then it's going through 5 million modes. Unless you need bike mode and beacons, you may not need that. But I'm just giving that as a suggestion. So if you did want to go to all modes, you've got, I think, police, which will be, you know, like a if you imagine a police car, it's it's generally 2 tones fluctuating, and it's going to be the same with the light on, off. And yeah, I think you have a bike mode. Now, bike modes tend to have like a flash or a steady with a stutter. It's just to give positioning data to people who can see out the corner of their eye and things like that, and it saves battery. And then I think you can have a 2-second beacon. So every 2 seconds you're going to get a flash. I generally use things like that for camping if I want to make a positional point or a rally point and things like that. And you can have a 10-second beacon. You know, if your battery's running out, you might want to use a 10-second beacon. But I think 10 seconds is a bit long. That's like trying to wait for a lighthouse. You know, you wait ages for the light to come back round. So bearing in mind, that's how I've explained it. So to try and keep this simple, I'm gonna tell you what I'm gonna do, and then I'm gonna do it. So at the moment, if I go to turbo and then press it again, it just turns off, because that's how you get turbo when it's turned on. Okay, so if it was turned on, I could go turbo, double click again, go to strobe. I can't do that because by default it's off. So let's go through this. So I'm going to hold for 16 seconds, and then I'm going to wait until it gets to section 4. So let's wait, and then you get the flashes right. So let's watch what's happening here. So flashes 1, 2, so it's in section 2. Flashes 1, 2, 3, it's in section 3. So I want section 4, which is coming up. 1, 2, 3, 4. Right, so now I need to make the change. So I want mode number 2 in that subsection. So if I leave it, right, it's gone back to normal, right. So essentially, this should now have strobe. So if I go to turbo and then press it again, strobe. Okay, I'll put that down because I don't want to irritate people who don't like strobe. So can you see, it's easy when I'm showing you how, but I can understand why people might think, good God, that's way overcomplicated. So if I wanted to turn that off again, I would hold for 16 seconds to enable the menus. Right, so that's in section 1. And then 2 flashes, I'm in section 2. 3 flashes, I'm in section 3. 4 flashes coming up. Right, so now if I just go, right, I want option 1, so disabled in other words. So we're back to default. Strobe is now disabled. So now if I go turbo and then try and get strobe, nothing. So it's not too bad. The problem is you need to be able to visually sort of imagine in your own mind what's happening in these menus, because there's no screen on these things. So that's the only way that they can do it. And I understand it's way overcomplicated to some people. I truly understand that. So I hope that that's helped. So again, if you wanted to turn strobe on from default, you're in ramping. I'm talking about from default, not in a modes mode, if that makes any sense. So if I hold this button at any point for 16 seconds, that's it. It's going to go through the modes. So the number 1, we're now in section number 2, which is the moon levels. I don't want to set that. Section 3, step down, not interested in changing that. And strobes, I am interested in changing this, so I'll give it 2 clicks. So 1, 2. I've picked option 2 in section 4, right? And then those flashes mean it's gone back to normal. It's in normal functioning. So if I go turbo and then turbo again, straight to strobe. So that is how you get the strobes on an S43 or an S43S in this case, which is the copper. So I hope that's helped Gunter, and I hope that helps anyone else who's also having a similar problem, because I understand it can be a little bit overwhelming with millions of settings. And bearing in mind, there's more settings. If this wasn't in ramping mode and the user interface was set to modes, I mean, instead of having 4 sections in what I've just described, there's something like 8, and it gets even more carried away. So I hope this has helped. If it's helped, stick a comment, or if you have any more problems with this, let me know. But I just wanted to help Gunter out because he seems like a nice guy, and I want people to enjoy their flashlights. That's kind of partly what this channel's about. It's about getting people outside, and in regards to flashlights, I just want to help people. That's why I don't ask for likes and things like that. So I hope that's helped everybody. It's time for me to finish my coffee and go. Bye bye.